Okay, thank you so much, guys. We're going to go over to education, the other uncontested role in the soapbox.
As Education EO, I oversee three main sections, which is advice, representation and peer support. So I oversee all of the course rep system and the school presidents. I also work with the peer support team to how we can further peer support and how we can spread that across the university, and work with Student Voice on all the advice and representation that you guys receive. Education EO role is really important, so it's my job to oversee and get feedback from the students to then take them forward to university committees. So I sit on a lot of university committees such as Senate and Learning and Teaching Committee, where I really take your views and make sure they are heard.
Well, there we go. That was Hannah Barton there, our current Education Executive Officer. And now in the studio with us, we've got Anna Maria. How are you?
Hiya, I'm good. How's it going?
It's going well, thank you. Would you like to take away with your opening statement?
Sure. Hi guys, my name is Anna and I'm running to be your next Education Executive Officer. Throughout university, I have held various positions which I believed have helped me develop the skills required for the position and to be a great candidate. I am currently sat as the chair of the Computer Science Department. I have been the vice chair of it as well, a course representative and a peer mentor. But most importantly, my department has become my home away from home. My lecturers, staff and students have a really close connection to each other. And if elected, I hope to make all students feel the same way about theirs too.
Fantastic, thank you very much. We'll start with this question. What do you think the biggest issue is currently facing students' education at Loughborough?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think student education can be seen from two different angles in this context. So on one side, we have student engagement, which I know a lot of sections have voiced as a current issue and a recurrent one, especially for us in education. It's becoming harder and harder to get students to get engaged with different activities we conduct around departments. As well as from a teaching perspective, I think we need a bit more continuity around all different schools and departments, where some are doing better than others. They're doing extremely better than others. So I think it's important we try to work together with the students especially to bring it to a level where it's somewhere in between.
So one of your main proposals in your manifesto is for a departmental education day during freshers. So what would this be?
So I think it would be best if I start by describing what I mean by Education Day. As some of you may be aware, a lot of departments, if not all of them, have an induction day. During the induction day, the head of the department, as well as different lecturers and people involved with it, will come down and speak to freshers about what they should expect in terms of their academia, learning, and so on and so forth. Within that as well, the departmental chair and the school president get a 10-minute slot to discuss about their opportunities. Now, I don't believe 10 minutes is enough to let students know of the things they can get involved in, as well as the way we can represent them within, like from a union perspective especially. So what I propose is that we together run an education day in all departments, potentially during freshers. Now, I know this may sound unfeasible at first, but when you think about it, with the right stakeholders involved, especially HSF, so Whole Students Federation, if we have their support and this education day is added to freshers' timetables, for example, and they help us push this and they help us better voice the fact that students should be aware of who is in charge of them in their departments, it will hopefully be a success.
So obviously last year, the big issue that most people had in education within the university was the strikes.
Yes.
And there's an increasing threat that this could be coming back again this year. We don't know. Yeah. How would you, if there were more strikes, how would you ensure that students either got money back or got some sort of recuperation for the lost time?
So I think it's important that I mentioned that I was a placement student last year, so I was not directly affected by the strikes. So it would be I don't think it would be fair for me to put myself in the shoes of students that have been in that situation. Now, I have heard and have kept up with what was happening at university, and it made me understand that things are not black or white. Of course, we want our lecturers to receive their pensions, but that should not sacrifice our students' education. So it's a very sensible subject and a sensitive subject, and I think the best way we can tackle it is by showing support to our students. At the end of the day, our union is not a political union. What we can do, especially from the education point of view, given that our main role as education EOs, well, not mine, if elected, would be to assure our students' voices are heard, would be to liaise with the university and make sure that their problems are voiced to someone that can actually help them directly with their studies.
Yeah, and as well as there's a lot of pressure being put on the university as well, you know, with metrics and the new TEF system potentially coming in as well, to sort of improve the university sector, as they say. How would you ensure the university keeps students at the heart of this, rather than just focusing on the metrics?
I think it all comes down to communication. The more we get our students engaged to actually voice their opinions and voice their struggles, the more we can get the university engaged to respond as well. At the end of the day, as a union, our biggest, in my opinion, role is to assure our students are heard, to assure that their struggles are being given to someone that can actually act upon them, especially for me, having been being a liaison between the university and the union. I don't know how I can directly do it through education, if elected, the position of education EO, but I know that I can start by helping students raise their voices and hopefully get people that can help them be aware of it.
So obviously if the subject level TEF comes in next year, how are you going to ensure that students get involved in that process?
So I know the subject level TEF has been trialed right now within different departments and different schools. I am not currently aware or with enough knowledge to comment upon that, as in I don't know what I would be able to do to assure that, but I think as long as students are clearly made aware of what TEF is and how important it is to prospective students especially, that's a good starting point.
So with recent cutbacks, obviously within LSU and especially with Student Voice as well, and the postgrad role as well going, how are you going to ensure that postgrads are kept involved in the process of education and are represented well?
I think a postgrad issue that we're facing right now is as well a very sensible subject. It's because I myself am aware I have not included it in my manifesto. That was not to undermine them nor ignore their needs. It was because as an undergraduate student for 4 years, I have not had enough insight into postgraduate lives. So currently, I do not know the struggles they are facing, mainly because of how I've been sat as an undergraduate student. I think the best thing to do going forward is to assure that their voices will not just be unheard because a postgraduate EO, the postgraduate EO role will disappear. As hopefully people know, the postgraduate chair will sit under the education umbrella. So I will oversee the process and I will oversee, hopefully, the way welfare right now is in charge of the international section, for example. So they will not be lost within everything. I think actually it will encourage more engagement from the executive team to speak up and hopefully help postgraduate students with whatever struggles they're facing.
So in your manifesto, you can sort of continue to mention these support mechanisms.
Yes.
What would these be and how would you organise them?
So the support mechanisms I referred to, I included them in my first point, detailed them, and then kept calling upon them. So for me, support mechanisms are the student voice streams, so peer mentors, PAL, peer facilitators, then departmental chairs, departmental committees, as well as school presidents and school reps. So I think it's important to realize that these streams already exist. What we need to do together is to reassure students of their existence as well as signpost them towards the support they might need.
You also mentioned communication between international students as well and with placement students. How are you actually going to ensure this happens? It's a lot of liaising with the university to ensure that this can happen. Is it realistic?
I don't think it necessarily has to come from the university. I think it could easily be taken care of departmental committees. So as a placement student myself, what I've learned from my friends that have also been on placement is that more often than not, you are thrown out and then thrown back into the university and into the LAFPA bubble. So in that year, a lot changes, a lot of changes that you are not aware of. For example, for ourselves in my year, our senior tutor was going to leave after this year. And we only found out in the beginning of the year. And I think we should have known about that prior to us coming back to university. And I think it's important to realize that our students, regardless of where they are, they're still our students and they're still part of the LAFPA family. I think it's not necessarily not feasible I think it needs to be proactively done by the education EO as well as volunteers that could potentially help put this into place.
And obviously, with this communication, how are you also going to ensure that that minority students as well will be incorporated in this? Whether these are the BAME students or postgrad students or international students?
So that point in my manifesto was mainly targeted at students that take a placement a year out of education, whether that's through a placement abroad or studying abroad, or as well as a placement here in the UK. It was not necessarily around minorities, but I understand where you're coming from with that. And I think it would be the same. Hopefully, we would not necessarily have to differentiate between our placement students. They would fall under the same category, as in students gone on placement or gone away for a year from their university studies that need to be kept in touch.
What do you think currently doesn't really work in student voice or the education section currently here at LSU? And what needs the most improvement?
So from my experience, I wouldn't necessarily say it doesn't work. I would say it can be improved. So DSF, Department Students Federation, is probably one of the highest volunteering roles I have held. So as a chair of a department, I sit on DSF with all the other chairs as well as the DSF committee. And I think right now, DSF is still finding its feet. So we're trying to see and define what DSF is meant to do, the same way HSF has been defined for so long, and it's continuously running. However, in terms of my perspective as a chair, I think DSF should have focused more around encouraging departments to raise awareness of one another within the student population, not necessarily compete against each other. So I love competition. I think friendly competition can really bring people up, and I love the fact that we are given the chance to do that within DSF. But I think the main priority of DSF right now should be helping chairs and as well as departments and within departments, because so many sit within the same school, to raise awareness of what opportunities students can be given within them.
Well, we're now going to pop down to JC's. We've got a question down there.
Hello. So as one of the main sabbatical members for the Department Student Federation, obviously you have quite heavy involvement within that, and this year engagement has been a huge problem for the Department Student Federation with regards to help they're receiving from the sections and then in turn their SIOs. How would you work with the other section heads to improve that relationship?
Oh, there we go. Sorry. So yes, that is very true. I think a lot of it comes from the fact that perhaps not all our section heads communicate or proactively communicate what we do to their executive officers. And I know they try, I know it's a voluntary role, but it's very important that the executive officers are aware of what DSF does. As LAFPRA climbs through the ladder, it becomes so much better and so much more focused on education. And that is fantastic to begin with. But that means DSF needs to be given more attention for it to grow and properly become something that students can relate by default. They don't chairs and their SIOs should not have to go above and beyond every single time to get students involved. They should be already have been given a basis to work with, so students should be aware of it. As I mentioned, I would like for this to happen as early as possible, especially within freshers, when students are engaged and more ready to hear what we have to say.
So obviously, considering that, we're going to go back to postgrads again because it's, in London it's such an important issue now, and considering that postgraduate representation obviously has been incorporated into the education role underneath you, how would you ensure that this group of students are fairly represented and that you're advocating on their behalf?
So at the moment, because this is the first time this will be implemented, I don't have a strategy going forward, given that the postgraduates have been represented by a postgraduate EO up to this year, and only now will they be represented by a chair that will sit and will be overseen by the education EO. I don't really know what I can do, but what I want students to understand, especially postgraduates, is that I'm very willing to listen and I'm very willing to learn. And if elected, I would like to sit down with the students that will be affected by this change to see how we can work together as well with the postgraduate chair that will be elected to assure that they are voiced and that they're taken care of and that their problems are brought to the union and further if needed.
So a fair few of your manifesto points relate to the university and working with the university. How would you go about pushing your agenda with them if the university doesn't really want to do it?
Once again, I think communication is key. The more you tell someone about your ideas, and the more passionate you are about them, the more they're likely to listen. That's what I've learned throughout what I've done at university, for example. So I think if we continuously voice what has to be voiced to the university, they will listen, because it's in their best interest to pay attention to what their students are doing, to pay attention to the way the students are receiving their education and how they engage in their extracurricular activities within the union, for example.
As well as this, your manifesto heavily talks about sort of election processes as well, and you want to introduce different election processes for election leaders in the education department. You want to have a series of questions. Why should these be any different to any other leadership positions in LSU? Why should you have a special set of questions that you get to ask?
So I wouldn't say they would be special. I think they are needed, and that's for two main reasons. But before I go into that, I'd like to explain what that actually means. So right now, if you apply for chair, for example, when I applied, you had to fill in a generic manifesto in which you discuss what you wanted. You were not necessarily given a framework to work with. So you wrote down your manifesto, and then voting was done in a democratic manner by the department. I personally do not think that is sufficient for two main reasons. First, it's really important that students that go for these roles realize whether they're actually fit for the role. And I think by filling in a questionnaire which literally could say, what is your experience and why are you applying for this role, as well as what do you plan to do if elected, would give the student cohort a better understanding of what they intend to do as leaders. At the end of the day, being a leader in in a disengaged cohort is so much more difficult than people sometimes think. And while filling that process in, that manifesto or questionnaire, they will be more likely to see whether they think they're actually going for the right role. There's a variety of roles you can go within departments, and perhaps the leadership one is not the one that they think they're fit for, and they could be fit for something else.
As well as in your manifesto, you say you want to further promote the 2018 to 19 education priorities that obviously Hannah's been working on for the whole of this year. Yes. Why don't you want to create your own?
I do want to create my own. That was more of a nod at the idea that I personally believe the education section needs continuity to improve. So I would not necessarily like to go into office and change everything that Hannah did if elected. I would like to promote the things that she has been working with or working on, because her ideas are incredible. For example, a peer support one talks about a 3-year scheme to assure that the peer support process will continue working. I don't plan to just scratch that. I plan to work with the stakeholders in charge of that as well to assure its continuity.
So yeah, apart from that, what is the biggest one you want to work on the most out of Hannah's priorities this year?
I think it would be peer support, yes.
So do you have any ideas for sort of any meaningful campaigns and education campaigns that you want to set up throughout your year?
So I think the first one would be Education Day. The more, I know I've said this before, but the earlier we tell students about what we do, the better. And as well as that, perhaps during refreshers, we could introduce something similar where people that have not necessarily got in touch with their departments or their presidents can sit down once again and get involved with them and talk to them and freely discuss this.
Okay, so we're going to go on to sort of one of the final questions here. You're heavily involved with the community science department, obviously. You're the competency chair as well. But your education experience is sort of fairly limited to this school, but also with the department committee side of things, less with representation and advice. So how are you going to bridge the gap between your knowledge?
So luckily for me, the way the computer science department works, we tend to communicate very well between each other. So the school president and I actually are currently working on a project together. And because of that, and because I have been a vice chair when that was also happening, I have always kept in touch with what my school president is doing. So I would not say I have been in her role, I haven't, but I have been given a great opportunity to learn more about what she does currently. And I think you say that my knowledge is limited to my department, but I also sit within the School of Science. So on the same manner, I don't know why this is it, but that's how we do it in the School of Science. The chairs and the program school presidents, they tend to have a really good relationship. We work together on projects. I know what they do. I hear what kind of struggles other chairs face within their own departments. I know it's not all of them, but 4 departments will hopefully suffice in me learning more about the other ones that I don't necessarily have a direct contact with right now.
Well, thank you very much, Anna. Would you like to deliver your final closing statement?
Yes. Thank you guys so much for listening. I've been Anna. As much as I would love for you to vote for me, I would love it even more if you voted. I think the only thing I would like to tell students is to educate yourselves. It's really important that you read our manifestos and really understand what we want to bring to the union. To do that, of course, when it comes to mine, if you feel like something is ambiguous or you don't agree with something, please feel free to get in touch with me on social media. I really want to make sure that if elected, I will put your priority, your experience, and your extracurricular activities up front. Yes, I've been Anna, and thank you so much for listening.
Well, thank you very much there for Anna. You did a fantastic job there. We're now going to go and head back down to JC's, where Izzie Miller is with the panel downstairs.
Thank you, Josh. I'm Izzie Miller, and I'm joined here with Amy Grezier, who is the current DSF president, Hannah Barton, who's the current education EO, and Rob Jays, who is proposing Anna Maria. So, Rob, how do you think Anna Maria's got on? How has she been feeling over the last few days?
I think she's one of the few candidates that I've seen over the course of the last few years that I've been here that has been genuinely passionate about her role to the point that it's caused her more stress than I think she needed. She's so passionate about getting her views across and about starting those conversations to get new initiatives and existing initiatives getting better. I think she's kind of found it very difficult to distance herself from what makes her unique, but at the same time, she really focused so very hard on what she wanted to say today and saying the right things. But what I hope everyone realizes is that this is just her authentic self. This isn't her having prepared herself well in advance. This isn't her scripting it. This is genuinely how she feels about education, how passionate she is. And as someone who's worked with her for the last 6 months in a variety of roles, and as someone who would consider themselves one of her best friends, I'm honored to say that she has done so incredibly well today. And she has genuinely started that conversation with some demographics within the university, I guess, because I know for a fact that the postgraduate president asked to meet with some of the candidates, and I think she went out of her way to ensure that she made herself shown so that she can understand their struggles and she can put those in. And the fact that she's happy to admit what she doesn't know, but that she'll go away and learn it and make an effort really means a lot to a lot of people, I hope, at least.
And do you think her position as a DO this year will have set her up for a good time if she does get education EO?
I think so, because I think what a lot of people tend to forget is that a DO is a very voluntary role, but it's also a very heavy role. So she's taken on so much this year because she's so passionate about doing well, and she's managed to manage her time. She's really found her place within LSU and within Loughborough University. She's found what really, really motivates her, I guess. So she's worked out that what she wants to do is improve student experience for everyone. She's worked out, as international DO, what makes the university her home, and that's what she's hoping to create next year, is a home for everyone, somewhere where everyone feels accepted and involved, because as she was so passionate about yesterday, not everyone has a hall, but everyone has a department. So it's important that we create those for them so that everyone feels included.
So, going on to you, Hannah, as education EO, how do you feel about Anna's point about the education day? How do you feel about that?
I think she did a really good job. Well done, Anna. But the education day is a really good idea. I think it's going to take a lot of work because Freshers is very traditionally halls focused, which is amazing because it's the best thing ever when you come to a new university and you're embraced by your hall. But I think it's just as important. As you say, every person has a department, not everyone has a hall. So when you move out in second and third year, you need those links with your department. And I think some students do take advantage of the services the department has to offer, but I think a lot of students just don't know about them. So I think the education day would be brilliant. I think it would take a lot of work, but I think it would be a really, really good idea.
Fab. Amy, on to you. Head of DSF, you're very aware of everything that Anna Maria has been talking about. Do you feel that she's addressed all the major issues that are relevant with current students? I
think a lot of the issues that Anna has addressed are very prevalent at the moment. They're very topical, and as a matter of fact, they are so important to the future of Loughborough's academic prowess. The main issues that I've been facing in the last year as DSF president is the actual support that we get from different sections, whether that be from Action and RAG and Welfare, or whether just the support we get from departments and the actual academia within them. I'm very lucky that I was part of a department where we had complete support from the academics, but I know there are lots of other departments that don't. And I think the fact that Anna is going after issues that will help support those departments and help strengthen the reputation that departments have is fantastic. But at the same time, one of the key issues that is going to be hard for her to address and anyone in her position to address is that other sections need to involve departments before they can progress further.
Okay, great. So we're going to ask one last question. I want to ask each of you for a short message about what you think that Anna Maria needs to be doing in these last few days to really show the best of herself and get her message across to students. So we'll start with you, Amy.
As a member of Loughborough staff, I'm not allowed to engage in the elections or the campaigning, but I can say from looking through my Facebook, all I have seen is Moana. All I can hear in my head is Moana. So I think on that respect, she's done an incredible job. I love the fact that she's had the flower in her hair the entire time. I think that's really pushing her forward as Moana, and I think that's a really, really good start.
Hannah?
Yeah, I think she's done an amazing job so far. Keep doing what she's doing. Going out and talking to students is the most important thing. You can have a 2-minute conversation with one student and that will change their entire outlook on the elections and the voting. And so just keep doing what she's doing and make sure, enjoy the last few days and become good friends with the other candidates, because it really does pull you guys together. From experience from last year, it did bring us all together at a very good event.
Finally, Rob.
Honestly, I think she just needs to continue doing what she's doing. She's been involved, she's been engaged, and she is in a very unique position because I feel from an LSU exec perspective that her role is typically one that is probably less flashy, and it's not the kind of thing that you would normally see as quite outgoing. It's the kind of thing that's very reserved and very back end, if you will. But just continue being her authentic self, which I know she does so well, just showing her passion and her vigour for what she's doing right now, and continue doing the fantastic work that she's already set up in the last 6 months alone, not even as part of her campaign, but just as part of being in a fantastic department chair. But realistically, the one thing that I would give to her for advice for the next couple of days is just continue to invite people who have maybe felt underrepresented or not listened to in the last few years, and really go out of her way to listen to those criticisms, form those opinions, and respond to them in a way that I know she will, which is authentically and with a great amount of passion and dedication to improving their experience.